The space station called Eternal Vigil floated in the darkness between three great empires, and on this day it held more powerful beings than it had seen in 1,000 years. Commander Marcus Cole stood near the back of the great hall, watching the aliens argue about trade, routes and territory borders, and he kept his face calm even though the tension in the room could be cut with a knife. He was a simple looking man, in his mid-40s, with gray starting to show in his dark hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of too many years in hard places. He wore the plain gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. No medals on his chest, no weapons visible at his side to anyone watching. He looked like exactly what he was supposed to look like. A quiet bureaucrat sent to take notes and stay out of the way. The Volante delegation sat at the center of the room, and they made sure everyone knew they were the most important species present there. Princess Cav Sunspire towered over everyone else at nearly 8 ft tall. Her scales shimmered like liquid metal under the lights, shifting from deep purple to bright silver with every movement. 4 powerful arms rested on the table before her, each one thick with muscle and ending in claws that could tear through steel. The Volante had conquered more worlds than any other species in this sector of the galaxy. They were apex predators, born and bred for combat, with reflexes so fast that other species said they could see the future. No one challenged them. No one defied them, and everyone showed them respect whether they felt it or not. Marcus had studied their culture for years before this mission. He knew that the Volante saw the universe as a simple place divided into 2 groups, predators and prey. They respected only strength, only power, only the ability to take what you wanted through force. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years, and in that time they had been careful to seem small and harmless. They traded technology and art. They made friends where they could, and they never showed their teeth. Most species barely noticed them, and that was exactly how Earth wanted it. But today something was about to change. A Volante noble named Thrax stood up from his seat and pointed one clawed finger at the human delegation. His voice boomed across the hall like thunder. Why do we waste time listening to the prey species? He demanded. The humans have nothing to offer us. They are soft, they are slow, they are weak. They should be grateful we allow them to sit in the same room as their betters. Marcus felt the eyes of every alien in the room turned toward the small human group. His fellow diplomats shifted nervously, but Marcus stayed perfectly still. The ambassador from Earth, a woman named Sarah Chun, opened her mouth to respond, but Marcus placed a gentle hand on her arm and stepped forward instead. We are here because we have the right to be here, he said, his voice calm and even. Humanity earned its seat at this table through trade and diplomacy. We do not mean to apologize for who we are. Thrax laughed, and the sound was ugly and cruel. Trade and diplomacy, he mocked. The tools of cowards. Real power comes from strength, and your species has none. I have seen your soldiers. They move like elderly prey animals waiting to be eaten. Princess Cav raised one of her hands, and Thrax immediately went silent. She turned her golden eyes toward Marcus, and he felt the weight of her gaze like a physical pressure against his chest. The noble speaks harshly, but he speaks truth, she said, and her voice was like silk wrapped around the blade. Your species is new to The stars, human, you do not understand. How the galaxy works, respect is not given, it is taken, and you have taken nothing. Marcus met her eyes without flinching. Respect can also be earned, he replied. The princess rose from her seat, all 8 ft of scaled muscle and barely contained power. The room went absolutely silent as she walked toward the human delegation. Each step she took made the floor vibrate, and Marcus could hear his fellow diplomats backing away. Behind him he did not move. Kelva stopped directly in front of him, close enough that he could see his own reflection in her metallic scales. She looked down at him the way a hawk might look at a mouse. You have courage, little human, she said. I will grant you that much, but courage without power is just foolishness. Your species cannot fight, cannot hunt, cannot conquer. You are nothing but clever prey animals who learn to build ships. We are more than that, Marcus said quietly. The princess tilted her head, and something dangerous flickered in her golden eyes. Prove it, she challenged. If humanity wishes to claim a place among the strong, then show us your strength. I challenge you, human. I challenge you to single combat. Face me in the arena and let us see what your species is truly made of. A gasp ran through the assembled aliens. The Volante were famous for their dueling traditions, and no species had ever defeated one of their warriors in single combat. Many had tried and all had failed. Ambassador Chun grabbed Marcus by the arm. You cannot accept this, she whispered urgently. It is suicide. We will find another way to handle this insult. But Marcus gently removed her hand and looked up at the princess. He knew what refusal would mean. Every species in this room would see humanity as weak and afraid. The diplomatic work of 50 years would be undone in a single moment. Earth would become a target for every predator species looking for easy prey. And he knew what acceptance might mean. He might die in that arena, torn apart by the most dangerous warrior in that sector, but at least humanity would be seen as brave enough to fight. I accept your challenge, he said. The princess smiled, and her teeth were like rows of polished knives. Then tomorrow you will die, she said, and your species will learn its place. She turned and walked back to her delegation, and the room exploded into noise as dozens of alien species began talking at once. Marcus could hear them placing bets, laughing about the foolish human who had signed his own death warrant. Ambassador Chun stared at him with horror in her eyes. What have you done? She asked. Marcus watched the princess sit back down, watched her accept congratulations from her nobles as if the duel was already won. He noticed how she moved, how she breathed, how she carried herself with the absolute confidence of someone who had never known defeat. I have given us a chance, he said softly. That night, alone in his quarters, Marcus stood in front of the mirror and looked at the scars that covered his body. Each one told a story. The jungle planet where he had survived for 3 months alone, the war zone where he had carried wounded soldiers for 40 m through enemy territory, the training programs that pushed human endurance to its absolute limits. The galaxy saw humans as soft and weak. They had no idea what they were really looking at. Marcus smiled at his reflection. They studied our ships, he said to himself. They studied our weapons and our cities and our art, but they never studied us. They never asked what kind of creature could come from a world where everything is trying to kill He picked up a simple knife, the only weapon he would carry into the arena, and he began to prepare for the most important fight of his life. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn what humanity truly was, and Princess Cav would learn that some prey animals were far more dangerous than any predator could imagine. The morning of the duel arrived, and the Eternal Vigil station buzzed with excitement like a hive of insects that had just discovered something sweet. Every species on the station wanted to see the fight. Tickets to the arena sold out within minutes, and those who could not get seats crowded around viewing screens in every bar and common area. The gambling houses were overflowing with aliens placing bets, and the odds were so heavily against the human that anyone foolish enough to bet on him could become rich beyond imagination. But no one was betting on the human. Princess Cav spent her morning in the traditional Volante way, sharpening her ceremonial blades and performing the ancient rituals of combat. Her forearms moved in perfect harmony as she danced through practice forms, each movement flowing into the next like water over stones. She was beautiful and terrifying, a living weapon that had been trained from birth to kill. Her advisor, an elderly Valente named Morith, watched her with approval. "You have never fought a human before, my princess," he said. "Shall I tell you what our intelligence has gathered about their species?" Kelth laughed as she spun through complex attack sequence, her blades cutting the air so fast they made a whistling sound. "What is there to know?" she asked. "They are small and soft. They have only 2 arms, and their reflexes are pathetically slow. Their bones break easily, and their skin tears like paper. This will not be a battle. It will be an execution." Morith nodded, but something in his old eyes showed a flicker of unease. "The human commander has a strange history," he said carefully. "Our agents could not access his full records. Parts of his past have been sealed by the human government at the highest levels." The princess stopped her practice and turned to face her advisor. Her golden eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting I should be worried about this creature?" she demanded. "Of course not, my princess. I'm merely suggesting caution. An enemy with secrets is an enemy who should not be underestimated." Kelth smiled and returned to her practice. "There is no secret that can save him," she said with absolute confidence. "When we meet in the arena, I will tear him apart in seconds. The galaxy will see what happens to those who dare stand against the Volante." Across the station, in a small human training room, Marcus Cole was preparing. In a very different way, he sat on the floor with his legs crossed, his eyes closed, his breathing slow and steady. He was not practicing combat moves or sharpening weapons. He was simply being still, conserving his energy, letting his mind become calm and clear like a mountain lake. Ambassador Chun entered the room and stood in the doorway, watching him with worried eyes. "The whole station is talking about the duel," she said. "They are calling it the slaughter of the century. They are taking bets on how many seconds you will survive." Marcus opened his eyes and smiled gently. "How many seconds do they think I will last?" he asked. "The most generous bets say 30. Most expect you to die in less than 10. Marcus nodded thoughtfully, as if this information was neither surprising nor concerning. "And what do you think?" he asked. Chun sat down on the floor across from him, and he could see tears forming in her eyes. "I think you are going to die," she said. her voice cracking. I think you have thrown your life away for nothing. We could have found another way, Marcus. We could have apologized, paid tribute, done anything except this. Marcus reached out and took her hand gently. Do you know why I volunteered for the diplomatic service? He asked. Chun shook her head. Before I became a diplomat, I was a soldier. I served on the frontier. Worlds, the dangerous places where humanity fought to survive against everything the universe could throw at us. I crawled through jungles filled with predators. I crossed deserts that wanted to cook me alive. I survived things that should have killed me 100 times over. He paused and his eyes became distant, looking at memories that still haunted him. I watched friends die. I carried their bodies home. I made promises to their families that their sacrifices would mean something, and then I came here to the diplomatic service because I realized that the greatest battle humanity faced was not against monsters or environments. It was against the perception that we were weak. Chun listened silently, tears now running down her cheeks. Every species in this galaxy looks at us and sees prey. Marcus continued. They see soft skin and small bodies and slow reflexes, and they think they understand what we are, but they do not understand, and they will never understand until someone shows them. He stood up and walked to the small window, looking out at the stars. Humans come from a world where everything is trying to kill us. Our planet has deserts and ice caps and jungles and oceans filled with predators. We evolved alongside creatures with bigger teeth and sharper claws and faster legs, and yet we are still here, and most of them are not. But the Volante are not ordinary predators. Chime protested. They are the most dangerous warriors in the known galaxy. Marcus turned to face her, and something in his expression made her words die in her throat. For just a moment she saw something behind his calm exterior, something old and patient, and absolutely terrifying. Every species we have ever met has underestimated us, he said quietly, and every species that has ever threatened us has learned the truth too late. The Volti think they are apex predators. They have no idea what an apex predator really looks like. There was a knock at the door and a station official entered. Commander Cole, the official said nervously. The arena is ready. The princess awaits you. Marcus picked up his simple knife and tucked it into his belt. He wore no armor, no protective gear, just a simple shirt and pants. Chun stared at him in disbelief. That is all you're taking? She asked. Just a knife against a warrior with 4 arms and ceremonial blades. Marcus smiled. I'm not taking just a knife, he said. I'm taking 10,000 years of human survival. I am taking the endurance of ancestors who chase prey across endless plains until the prey drop dead from exhaustion. I am taking the stubbornness of explorers who crossed frozen wastelands and burning deserts. I am taking the patience of hunters who waited for days without moving for the perfect moment to strike. He walked to the door and paused. The Volante are sprinters, he said. They evolved to kill quickly, to overwhelm their prey in seconds, but humans are marathon runners. We evolved to outlast, to endure, to keep going long after everything else has collapsed. Chun stood up and grabbed his arm one last time. What if endurance is not enough? She whispered. What if she kills you before you can outlast her? Marcus looked at her with eyes that had seen death 100 times and never Flinched, then I will die on my feet, fighting until my last breath showing the galaxy that humans never surrender. And that will still be a victory, even if I do not live to see it. He gently pulled free and walked out the door. Corridors were lined with aliens of every species, all watching the human walk toward the arena. Some laughed at him, mocking his small body and his simple weapon. Some stared in confusion, unable to understand why he walked with such calm confidence towards certain death. And a few, just a few, felt the first stirrings of something they could not quite name, something that might have been unease. At the entrance to the arena, Marcus paused and looked up at the ancient stone archway. Thousands of years of history surrounded him. Warriors from dozens of species had walked through this arch, and most of them had never walked out again. Volante had never lost a duel in this place, and today they expected to add another easy victory to their legend. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped through the archway. The roar of the crowd washed over him like a wave. Thousands of alien voices screaming for blood. The arena floor stretched before him, a circle of ancient stone under harsh white lights, and on the other side of that circle Princess Keelth waited. She stood like a goddess of war, her scales gleaming, her forearms holding blades that sparkled like captured starlight, her golden eyes fixed on him with the hungry intensity of a predator watching prey. Marcus walked to his position and faced her. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then the princess smiled. "Any last words, human?" she asked. Marcus looked at her, and his calm expression never changed. "I have only one request," he said. "When this is over, remember that you asked for this." The horn sounded, and the duel began. The horn's echo had not yet faded when Princess Keelth attacked. She moved like lightning wrapped in scales, crossing the distance between them in the blink of an eye. Her forearms blurred as all four blades came at Marcus from different angles, each strike designed to end the fight before it truly began. The crowd roared with excitement, expecting to see the human torn apart in the opening seconds, but Marcus was not there. He had moved the instant the horn sounded, not toward the princess, but sideways away from her attack. His movement was not as fast as hers, not even close, but it was enough. Her blades cut through empty air where he had been standing a heartbeat before. Keelth spun and attacked again, her golden eyes blazing with annoyance. This time she came at him from the side, her lower arm sweeping low while her upper arm struck high. There was no way to dodge all four blades at once. Marcus did not try to dodge all of them. He ducked under the high strikes and twisted his body so the low strikes only grazed him. One blade opened a cut across his ribs, and red blood splashed onto the ancient stone floor. The crowd cheered. First blood had been drawn, but Marcus kept moving, circling away from the princess, his eyes never leaving her. Keelth smiled and pursued him across the arena floor. She was enjoying herself now the way a cat enjoys playing with a mouse before eating it. The human was fast for his species, she admitted silently, but that only meant the hunt would be slightly more interesting. She attacked again and again, her blades weaving patterns of death in the air. Each time Marcus managed to avoid the killing blows, but each time he collected new wounds, a cut on his arm, a slash across his leg, thin line of red on his cheek. The blood began to drip steadily onto the stone. The alien spectators laughed and mocked. The human, he could not even fight back. He was just running around like a frightened animal, waiting to be put down. The betting houses started, adjusting their timers, wondering how many more minutes he could survive before collapsing from blood loss. 5 minutes passed. Princess Calves was not laughing anymore. The human should have been dead by now, or at least on his knees begging for mercy. Instead, he was still moving, still circling, still watching her with those strange, calm eyes. She attacked with renewed fury, all 4 arms working in perfect coordination. Her blades became a storm of steel that should have been impossible to survive. She drove him across the arena, her strikes coming faster and faster. Marcus retreated steadily, blocking only when absolutely necessary, his simple knife turning aside the most dangerous attacks. He did not try to count her, did not try to wound her, did not try anything except staying alive. 10 minutes passed. The crowd grew quieter. Something was wrong. The human was covered in cuts, his simple clothes soaked with blood, and yet he was still on his feet. He was still moving at the same pace he had been moving at the start. How was that possible? Kelth began to notice something else. Her arms were getting tired. The burning in her muscles was growing. Her breathing was becoming heavier. She had never fought this long before. Her species was designed for quick kills, overwhelming power, delivered in short bursts. Extended combat was simply not something valiant warriors trained for. She forced herself to ignore the fatigue and attacked again. This time she caught Marcus with a solid hit, one of her blades punching straight through his left shoulder. The crowd gasped as the human staggered backward, the princess's blade still embedded in his flesh. Kelth smiled in triumph. Finally, a real wound. The human would surely surrender now, but Marcus did not surrender. He grabbed the blade with his bare hand, ignoring the way it cut into his palm, and pulled it out of his shoulder. Blood poured from the wound, but he simply pressed his other hand against it and kept moving. The arena fell absolutely silent. Every alien watching felt a chill run down their spine. The human should be screaming in pain. He should be on the ground begging for death. Instead, he was still standing, still moving, still watching the princess with those impossibly calm eyes. Kelveth felt something she had never felt before in combat. Uncertainty. What was this creature? How could it take such punishment and keep fighting? 20 minutes passed. The princess was breathing hard. Now her scales no longer shimmering, but dull with fatigue. Her forearms felt like they were filled with sand, each movement requiring more and more effort. She had never been this tired in her entire life, and the human was still circling, still watching, still waiting. Cav attacked again, but her movements were slower now, less precise. Marcus dodged more easily, and for the first time he did not collect any new wounds. She was losing her edge. The crowd began to murmur this was impossible. They, Volante, were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. They did not get tired. They did not slow down. They killed their enemies and moved on, but the evidence was right in front of them. The princess was fading and the human was not. 30 minutes passed. Kelth could barely lift her arms. The blades that had been extensions of her body now felt like anchors dragging her down. Her lungs burned with every breath, and her hearts were pounding so hard she could feel them in her skull. She looked at the Human really looked at him for the first time since the duel began. He was covered in blood, some of his wounds still dripping onto the floor. His shirt was torn to shreds, and she could see scars beneath the fresh cuts. Old scars, dozens of them, covering his body like a map of violence. This was not his first battle. This was not even his 100th battle. This creature had been fighting his entire life, and he was still moving at exactly the same pace he had started with. Kelv felt fear creeping into her hearts. She tried to push it away, tried to remind herself that she was the princess of the mightiest empire in the sector, but the fear would not leave. "What are you?" she gasped between ragged breaths. Marcus looked at her, and for the first time he spoke during the combat. "I am human," he said simply. "And we do not stop," she screamed in rage and charged at him with everything she had left. Her forearms moved in one final desperate assault, all four blades seeking his heart. Marcus waited until the last possible second, then stepped to the side and let her momentum carry her past him. She stumbled, her exhausted legs betraying her, and nearly fell. When she turned around, she found him standing exactly where she had started the fight, still holding his simple knife, still breathing steadily, still watching her with those terrifying, patient eyes. 1 hour had passed. Arena was completely silent. Thousands of aliens stared in disbelief at the scene before them. The greatest warrior, princess of the Volante Empire, the undefeated champion of 100 duels, could barely stand, and the human bleeding from a dozen wounds, a hole still visible in shoulder, was waiting for her to come at him again. Kelth felt her legs trembling. She had never known such exhaustion. She had never known such defeat, and the worst part was that the human had not even tried to hurt her. Yet he had just been waiting for her to destroy herself. She raised her blades one more time, knowing that she had almost nothing left to give, and prepared for the end, whatever that end might be. 2 hours had passed since the duel began, and Princess Kelth could barely keep her eyes open. Her body screamed for rest. Every muscle burned like fire. Every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. Every heartbeat pounded in her skull like a war drum. She had never experienced anything like this exhaustion, had never even imagined such a thing was possible. The Volante were designed by nature to be explosive killers. They attacked with overwhelming force, destroyed their prey in seconds, and moved on to the next hunt. Their bodies were not built for endurance. They had never needed endurance until now. Marcus Cole stood across from her, still watching, still waiting. His body was a ruin of wounds, blood covered almost every inch of his skin. The hole in his shoulder was still visible, and one of his eyes was swollen half shut from a blow that had caught him earlier. By any reasonable measure, he should have been dead 3 times over, but he was still standing. He was still breathing steadily. He was still moving with that same calm, patient rhythm he had shown from the very beginning. Kelveth felt something cold crawling through her heart's fear, real fear. The kind of fear she had only seen in the eyes of prey animals. She had become the prey, and she had not even realized it until now. How she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "How are you still fighting?" Marcus tilted his head slightly, and for a moment she thought she saw sympathy in his strange eyes. "Do you know how humans evolved?" he asked. "Do you know what our ancestors did to survive on Earth?" Kelveth did Not answer, she could not waste the breath. We were not the fastest animals on our planet, Marcus continued, his voice calm and steady as if they were having a conversation over drinks. We were not the strongest, we did not have claws or fangs or scales. By every measure, we should have been easy prey. He began to walk slowly around the arena, and Cav found herself turning to keep him in sight, her exhausted legs screaming in protest. But we had something else, he said. We had endurance. We could walk and run for hours, for days, while other animals tired and stopped. When we hunted, we did not chase our prey at full speed. We followed it slowly, steadily, never stopping, never resting until the prey collapsed from exhaustion and we could simply walk up and kill it. The crowd listened in absolute silence. Many of them had studied human biology, but none of them had understood what it truly meant. Your species evolved to win battles, Marcus said, and his voice was gentle, almost kind. My species evolved to win wars. You were designed to kill quickly. We were designed to never stop. Kel felt her remaining strength fading. With every word he spoke, she tried to raise her blades one more time, but her arms would not obey. They hung at her sides like dead weight, the weapons she had trained with since childhood, now feeling like anchors dragging her into the abyss. Surrender, she croaked. Why do you not force me to surrender? I cannot fight anymore. You have won. Marcus shook his head. I cannot force you to do anything, he said. This was never about defeating you. This was about showing everyone what humanity truly is. He walked toward her, and she realized she could not even lift her arms to defend herself. All four limbs hung uselessly, trembling with exhaustion. If he wanted to kill her, she could not stop him, but he did not attack. He stopped right in front of her and looked up into her golden eyes. We are not what you think we are, he said quietly. We are not prey. We never were. We are something far more dangerous. We are the species that simply refuses to die. Cav felt her legs give out as she collapsed to her knees. The great princess of the Volant Empire, the undefeated warrior, the terror of a dozen conquered worlds, knelt before a human who stood barely taller than her. In this position, she waited for the killing blow. Instead, she felt his hand touch her shoulder gently. I do not want to kill you, Marcus said. I never did. I just needed you to understand. He held out his other hand to her. Kel stared at that hand, small, soft, covered in his own blood. A hand that should have been weak, should have been easy to crush, but she knew now that there was nothing weak about this creature. Yield, he asked, not because you are defeated, but because there is no reason for either of us to die today. Humanity does not want enemies. We want all eyes. We want friends. We want species who will stand beside us when the darkness comes. Tears formed in Cal's eyes, the first tears she had shed since she was a child. She did not understand why she was crying. Perhaps it was exhaustion, perhaps it was shame, or perhaps it was something else entirely. She took his hand. Crowd erupted in chaos. Aliens screamed in disbelief, jumped from their seats, demanded explanations. The Volante delegation sat frozen in shock, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Marcus helped Cav to her feet, supporting her weight with surprising strength for someone so wounded. I yield, she said loud enough for the crowd to hear. The human has won. The words echoed through the arena like thunder. No Volante had ever spoken Those words, no Volante had ever been forced to speak those words until now. Marcus turned to face the crowd, still holding the princess upright. Humanity does not come to the stars seeking conquest, he called out. We come seeking cooperation, but let this duel serve as a warning to any who would threaten us. We are not prey, we are not weak, we are the species that crossed oceans in wooden ships. We are the species that climbed the highest mountains because they were there. We are the species that walked into fire to save strangers and marched across frozen wastelands to reach home. His voice rose, with each sentence filling the arena with a power that had nothing to do with volume. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We have rebuilt our civilization from ashes a dozen times, and we will be here, standing, fighting, refusing to surrender long after every species that called us weak has turned to dust. He paused and looked around at the thousands of alien faces staring at him. Remember this day, he said. Remember what you saw, and never make the mistake of thinking humans are easy prey. He turned and began walking toward the arena exit, helping Calth with every step. The princess leaned on him heavily, her exhausted body barely able to move. As they passed through the ancient archway, she looked at the human who had just destroyed everything she believed about the universe. You could have killed me, she whispered, many times. Why did you not take the opportunity? Marcus looked at her, and his eyes were filled with something she could not quite understand, something that looked almost like sorrow. Because killing is easy, he said. Any predator can kill. But changing someone's mind, opening their eyes, showing them a new way to see the universe, that is much harder. And humanity has never backed down from a hard challenge. Calvet felt something shift inside her heart. She had entered the arena believing humans were the weakest species in the galaxy. She left it wondering if they might be the strongest. 1 week had passed since the duel, and the galaxy had not stopped talking about what happened in the arena. Every news network on every world carried the story. The footage was watched billions of times across hundreds of systems. Species that had never heard of humanity suddenly found themselves studying everything they could about these strange soft creatures who had done the impossible. The Volante Empire was in chaos for the first time in their history. One of their champions had yielded. Debates raged across their worlds about what this meant, whether their princes had shamed them or revealed the truth they needed to face. But on the Eternal Vigil Station, something far more important was happening. Marcus Cole sat in the medical bay, his wounds wrapped in bandages, his body slowly healing. The doctors had been amazed that he was still alive. He had lost enough blood to kill most species twice, and the wound in his shoulder should have destroyed his arm, but humans, they were learning, were remarkably difficult to kill. The door opened, and Princess Calth entered. She looked different now. The arrogance was gone from her posture, replaced by something thoughtful and uncertain. She moved carefully, her body still recovering from the exhaustion of the duel. It had taken her 3 days to regain the ability to walk properly. May I speak with you? She asked, and her voice was soft, almost humble. Marcus nodded and gestured to a chair beside his bed. Kella sat down and was silent for a long moment, staring at her 4 hands. I have been thinking about what happened, she finally said. I have been trying to understand all my life. I was taught that strength was everything, that the strong rule and the weak serve, that the only thing that matters in the universe is the ability to kill your enemies. She looked up at him and he saw confusion in her golden eyes. But you did not kill me. You could have many times, but you chose not to. And somehow that made your victory even greater. I do not understand how that works. Marcus smiled gently. True. Strength is not about destruction, he said. It is about choice. Anyone can kill when they have the power to do so. But choosing to spare, choosing to offer mercy, choosing to turn an enemy into a friend, that requires a different kind of strength. Kelveth considered his words. My people have conquered dozens of worlds, she said slowly. We have destroyed armies and crushed civilizations. And yet we have no true allies. Every species fears us, but none of them respect us. None of them would fight beside us if we faced a real threat. Because fear is not the same as loyalty. Marcus replied, you cannot force someone to care about you. You cannot conquer your way to friendship. Those things must be earned. The princess was silent for a long time. You said something in the arena, she finally whispered. You said the darkness was coming. You said humanity wanted Ois who would stand with you when it arrived. What did you mean? Marcus looked at her with eyes that suddenly seemed very old and very tired. The universe is larger than any of us know, he said. There are things out there in the dark spaces between galaxies, things that make the Volant look like harmless children. Humanity has caught glimpses of them, ancient signals, dead worlds, warnings left by species that no longer exist. Kelth felt a chill run down her spine. And you believe these things are coming? She asked. We do not believe we know it. Maybe centuries before they arrive. It may be millennia, but they are coming. And when they do, every petty conflict between our species will seem like nothing. We will need every ally we can find, every friend we can make, every species willing to stand together against the void. He reached out and took her hand gently. That is why I did not kill you, he said. That is why humanity has been patient, has been quiet, has let other species believe we were weak. We are not preparing for the wars of today. We are preparing for the war that will decide whether life survives in this galaxy. Kelvath stared at him in amazement. You planned all of this? She asked. 50 years of appearing weak, of hiding your true nature. It was all part of a strategy. Marcus nodded. Humanity learned long ago that the greatest weapon is not a sword or a ship. The greatest weapon is patience. We can wait for centuries, building our strength, making our preparations while everyone else fights over scraps. And when the time comes, when the real enemy appears, we will be ready. The princess felt something stirring in her heart, something that felt almost like hope. And you want the Volante to stand with you, she said. You want us as allies, not subjects. Yes, your people are strong and brave. You have conquered much, but you have also learned discipline and sacrifice. If you can learn to fight for something greater than yourselves, you could be among humanity's greatest allies. Kelth rose from her chair and stood at attention. I cannot speak for my entire empire, she said, but I can speak for myself. You have shown me a truth I never imagined. Commander Cole, you have defeated me in combat, yet treated me with respect. You have earned my loyalty. Not through fear but through honor, she placed her 4 hands over her heart's in the traditional volante gesture of absolute commitment. I Kelvet Sunspare, Princess of the Volante Empire, pledge myself to the cause you have described. When the darkness comes, I will fight. Beside humanity, I will stand with the species that taught me what true strength really means. Marcus smiled and slowly climbed out of his medical bed, ignoring the pain in his wounded body. Then let us begin preparing, he said. Together, in the weeks that followed, everything changed. Species that had ignored humanity suddenly requested diplomatic meetings, trade agreements expanded, research partnerships formed, military alliances began to take shape. The galaxy had seen what one human could do, and they were suddenly very interested in having humans as friends rather than enemies. The Volante Empire, led by Princess Cav, became humanity's first true ally. The two species began training together, learning from each other, combining their very different strengths. And Marcus Cole, the quiet diplomat who had changed the galaxy with a single duel, returned to his work with a small smile on his face. One evening, Ambassador Chun found him standing at a window looking out at the stars. Intelligence reports are coming in, she said. Every major power in the sector is reassessing their relationship with Earth. You have accomplished something incredible, Marcus. He nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on the infinite darkness beyond the window. This is just the beginning, he said quietly. We have allies now, but we need more. We need every species in this galaxy to understand that we are all on the same side, because what is coming will not care about empires or borders or ancient grudges. Chum stood beside him and followed his gaze into the void. Do you really believe something is out there? She asked. Marcus was silent for a long moment. I have seen the ancient warnings, he said. I have read the messages left by dead civilizations. I have looked into the darkness and felt it. Looking back, yes, something is out there and we must be ready. He turned away from the window and walked toward the door. Humanity has always survived by refusing to give up, he said. We have faced ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters. We have stood at the edge of extinction and pulled ourselves back, and we will do it again as many times as necessary until the stars themselves grow cold. He paused at the door and looked back at Chun. We were never the prey, he said with a quiet smile. We were just waiting for the right moment to show our teeth. And now the galaxy knows what we really are. He walked out into the corridor, leaving Chun alone with the stars, and somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, something ancient and terrible turned its attention toward a small spiral arm where a stubborn species had just announced its presence to the universe. The real war was still coming, but humanity would be ready. They had always been ready. That was what it meant to be human.